I'm the dude. So that's what you call me.
Are you a virgin?
Yeah, not since I was 10.
Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret.
Come on to the coast. We get together, have a few laughs.
Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
Can I return it if it doesn't fit?
It always fits. Eventually.
Welcome back, Movie Minglers. I'm Caveman.
And I'm Maggie.
And we're on episode 17, which is Barbenheimer.
Barbenheimer. Beep,
Wait,
beep, beep.
no, we already did Barbie. So, yeah, now we're on the other half of that crazy summer of Barbie and Oppenheimer. We're doing Oppenheimer today.
Yeah, which is exciting. It's a hell of a movie.
We saw it once in theater, and now we've seen it for the second time together.
Yes, so we have only seen this movie twice, and then the second time we viewed it was over the course of like 4 days because it's a long movie, and we just did not have the 3 hours to sit down and devote the time to... Robin? God damn it.
Yep, producer Robin is enjoying his bed on top of our podcast equipment, which is always fun to have a cat mixed up in all your cables.
Yeah, no, he's trying to knock over my laptop currently because it's in his way, so we'll see how long this...
And he is the producer, so he gets his way.
He knows best. Ah, no, ow, fuck you.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
So, as we all probably know, Oppenheimer was written and directed by Christopher Nolan in 2023. The movie was based off of a book called American Prometheus, The Triumph and Tragedy of J. Robert Oppenheimer. That book was published in 2005, obviously a biography of the physicist J. Robert Oppenheimer, written by Kai Bird and Martin J. Sherwin over a period of 25 years it took him to write that book.
I mean, it's a hell of a story.
It won numerous awards, the book, including the 2006 Pulitzer Prize for Biography.
Dang.
Yeah, not bad. So I guess it was only fitting that Oppenheimer won the Oscar for Best Film last year, especially when it's based off of a Pulitzer Prize winning book. I kind of found this interesting. We all know who Oppenheimer is and what he did. But the fact that he smoked a lot.
The man lived off of cigarettes and martinis.
So it's no surprise that he was diagnosed with throat cancer in 1965, and after inconclusive surgery, he also went under unsuccessful radiation treatment, which is kind of ironic.
Yep.
And chemotherapy in 1966, and he died in his sleep in 1967 at the age of 62.
Really not that long of a life if you think about it.
Pretty short.
Damn, what the shit that he did.
The shit that he did while he was here. He made a name for himself for sure. But we're going to get into all of that. One of my favorite parts about this movie was the music done by Ludwig Göransson. He also did music for Creed 1 and 2.
Black Panther, which he won the Oscar for.
2, yeah.
He also did the music for Community and New Girl and
The Mandalorian.
Happy Endings, The Mandalorian, yeah. He's prolific. I'm going to always talk about the song when Ludwig Göransson comes up because he has a song off of the Community soundtrack called If I Die Before You, and it is genuinely one of like my top 5 favorite romantic songs. I absolutely love it. So check it out. It's a great song and deserves its joy and flowers.
This is the second film that Ludwig Göransson has worked on with Christopher Nolan, the first being Tenet. I only saw Tenet once, and the music was definitely in the foreground, like all Nolan movies. And we have talked already kind of at length, but not entirely about Oppenheimer because we did a bonus episode for the Oscars. Mm-hmm. So that we have talked a lot, but for people who didn't listen to the Oscars episode, we're going to be repeating a few things, but that's all right. The cinematographer for Oppenheimer was Hoyt van Hoytema. He also worked on the music for Nope, Tenet, Ad Astra, Dunkirk, Interstellar, and Her. So he has also done a lot of cinematography for Christopher Nolan and some other really good movies. Oppenheimer was only made for $100 million, which is a lot of money, but compared to what like movies, especially this year, have been like rolling out with 150, $200 million budgets, this one was a lot lower. And I think one thing that definitely helped that was not a lot of CGI was used in this movie. It's a very practical effects heavy film, which Nolan loves. I know.
Yeah.
I know. We all. I think CGI definitely works the best when practical and CG are working together, complementing each other, helping lift each other up. Yes, CGI was used in this movie.
They claim that it wasn't, though, which is annoying. Like, all over the IMDb trivia section was just like thing after thing of like, oh, there's not a single computer generated image in this whole movie.
I think there's a difference. People get confused on the difference between what computers are used for CG and what computers are used for special effects.
Yeah.
And some special effects were used that were not practical, but it was very little. There was some background stuff.
The fact that people are like, oh, there's not a single, like, fully CG shot in the whole movie. How did they get the shot of the Earth at the end with fire rolling across it? Or the shot, you know, again at the end where all the rockets are shooting into the sky? Like,
that looked very
he didn't film
CG.
that.
That was not practical looking.
You know,
the smoke coming out of some of that looked digital.
Yeah, so like I'm obviously he didn't use a lot of digital effects. He did do a lot of things practically, which is cool. There's still VFX effects used.
Sure.
But I feel like people were like, "Oh, there's not a single thing in this movie." Like, and it's like, no, that's not true. There was.
I mean, yeah, like I said, Nolan's very famous for not using a lot of digital effects. He's an old school director who loves his practical effects, which I can appreciate when it's done right, or when it's, and we'll get into some of the shots that I feel like should not have been practical or should have been practical a different way. But we'll talk about that in a bit. Like I said, it was made for $100 million, and it was just $24 million short of making $1 billion in the theater and with DVD Blu-ray sales.
So it still conceivably could.
It could over its time, especially movies always go back to the theater for another run, or hey, we're about to go watch The Lord of the Rings later this month.
This movie is essentially $1 billion movie.
It is. It is essentially $1 billion movie. And in a time, 2023, I thought was a really, really good year for film. I was so excited about a lot of the films. For once, I was really excited about a lot of the films that came out or that were nominated for Oscars. Usually the ones that are nominated, I either didn't see or didn't want to see or didn't care enough about. But last year was like almost a golden year for film. But not that they were all making billions of dollars. Oppenheimer and Barbie definitely helped boost theater sales, and the last summer was a great year for movies. Here's an interesting fact, Maggie, since we've seen this film that I'm about to talk about. But Oppenheimer is certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes with a 93% from critics and a 91% from audiences, which is fantastic. But you would be really interested to know that that is lower than what Whiplash is rated on Rotten Tomatoes. It has a 94 from both critics and audiences.
What movie did they watch that we didn't? You know what? I can't get back into this. I can't. It'll just.
But how Whiplash is a higher rated movie from both critics and audiences over Oppenheimer. It has to be
just because it was that, when it came out 10 years ago, it was the thing. I don't know. I hate that goddamn movie so much.
It'll always be a mystery to us. I thought you'd be interested to find that one out. Oppenheimer was also one of the biggest, if not the biggest, award-winning film last year as well. It won 346 awards. It won all but 11 awards it was nominated for.
Damn.
6 of those losses out of the 11 were at the Academy Awards, which wasn't bad they were. It sounds bad. They lost out on 6 awards at the Oscars, but their Oscar wins included Best Film, Best Music, Best Directing, Best Lead Actor, Supporting Actor, Cinematography, and Editing. So they did a great.
Was
Emily Blunt.
Was Emily Blunt nominated?
She was nominated, didn't win.
She didn't win. Who won?
That was Kruger, not Kruger.
Emma Stone. No, yeah.
No, Emma Stone won for leading.
Oh, was she? It was Divine
Emily Blunt
Randolph.
was. Yeah, from
Joy.
The Holdovers.
The Holdovers,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is the better role. I mean, I don't know. Like you can't compare the two.
There were
but
so many great nominated
yeah,
performances.
No,
and
it's last year's Oscars really were
technical
just like
awards and all that
top
stuff.
tier across the board. But Emily Blunt deserved something for that role. She's so fucking good in this movie. I can't wait to talk about the actors in this film.
Same. Well, let me just, before we get into all that, I'm just going to shoot off all the actors that I was so happy to see in this film. Some of them are big-time actors, like Matt Damon, and some of them are like much smaller actors that I know, like, Benny Safdie and Rami Malek. They're definitely on the smaller side, and then everybody in between, just these actors that you know well, or just actors you haven't seen in a movie in a while.
I don't think it's fair to say Rami Malek's on the smaller side of...
He does big movies, but he also stays on the low side, too. Like, the biggest movie I think he's been in before this one was probably James Bond.
Well, Bohemian Rhapsody. He won the Oscar
That's
for
true.
Bohemian Rhapsody.
He was Freddie Mercury.
Although...
I only saw Bohemian Rhapsody once, which I don't know how I've let that slide.
I've seen it a couple of times, but fucking Rocketman's the better film. And I don't understand...
Did they come out the same time?
They came out around the same time, yeah.
I did like Rocketman more.
Yeah, Bohemian Rhapsody is fine. I mean, very problematic director, and, it's got a very skewed take on the history and how things actually progressed. And it's a great film. Like, fuck, I loved the energy between the guys and Queen. I loved the whole Live Aid performance. All of that's fantastic, but Rocketman's the better fucking movie. Rocketman is a phenomenal biopic, and I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it.
So this packed cast includes Cillian Murphy, Emily Blunt, Robert Downey Jr., Alden Ehrenreich, Scott Grimes, Tony Goldwyn, James Darcy, Kenneth Branagh, David Krumholtz, Josh Hartnett, Florence Pugh, Matthew Modine, David Dastmalchian, Matt Damon, Dane DeHaan, Jack Quaid, Benny Safdie, Rami Malek, Casey Affleck, and Gary Oldman. That is such an insane cast. I could list off a couple movies that I like from every single one of these actors.
Oh, easily.
That would be...
Yeah.
No, I recommend the audience on our podcast, go look up if you haven't seen some of the movies that some of these actors have been in, like, a lot of them are just fantastic.
I mean, David Krumholtz has been making incredible films since he was a child. He is my forever beloved.
Watch Numbers, the TV show. He's amazing in that.
Fucking 10 Things I Hate About You.
Sure.
Like,
or
fucking the Santa
Claus. Yeah.
Like, David Krumholtz is just such a great actor, and I'm always happy to see him in everything.
Because he's always so good.
He's always so good.
Same thing with David Dastmalchian.
David Dastmalchian, what a wonderful character actor who just gets to come in and do weird shit all the time, but he's also phenomenal, like, actor. You just watched
Late Night with the Devil.
Yeah, how was that?
I loved it, and he was great. It was just that fun 70s style possession horror of a late night talk show host like Conan O'Brien, but a much sadder Conan O'Brien, like a guy whose life has fallen apart, and then this night of evil. And anyway, it's on Shudder, the streaming app Shudder, if people want to check out that one. I recommend that one.
Scott Grimes, again, eternal beloved, who we first met in Band of Brothers, but he has done so many things with Seth MacFarlane. He is was a huge part of the Orville. He's the voice of Steve on American Dad.
He's so good
He's
in
also
Orville.
just an incredible singer, and he put out an album back in like 2003, 2004, 2005, sometime in there. That's solidly good, and it's like John Cougar Mellencamp good. It's like Bruce Springsteen good. It's all just Americana music, like Americana rock and roll that you would, listen to while driving your truck with the windows down. It's so good. Scott Grimes, my ginger love. I'm always happy to see him in things. And the only part that I'm sad about him being in this movie is that all of his scenes were in black and white, and we didn't get to see his ginger hair. But James Darcy, who's been in 1,000 things and is fantastic. Tony Goodwin, who has been in 1,000 things and fantastic.
Tony Goldwyn.
Tony Goldwyn, who's the voice of Tarzan.
He always plays a really great villain. He's one of the his character to this day still frightens me from the movie Ghost, because he's such an evil man in that movie. He does a great. So every time I see him, I'm really happy.
Kenneth Branagh. Kenneth goddamn motherfucking Branagh, who I will love with all of my heart forever. And, you guys have seen all the Shakespeare movies he's done. You've seen the Pierrot movies. Like, Kenneth Branagh can do no wrong, in my opinion. He filmed this. He wrote and directed this really wonderful, tiny little film called How to Kill Your Neighbor's Dog that I cannot recommend enough. It's such a funny, charming little film. That doesn't get enough praise. You got Josh Hartnett, who tried, and collectively the world went, we're good. We're good. Thanks, man. And then he disappeared for a long time, and now he's back, and I think collectively we still went, nice to see you. But
somebody who I left off the list somehow is Jason Clarke.
Yeah, Jason Clarke is...
I love Jason Clarke, and I wish he was in more movies that could see.
I think I always... What did Jason Clarke do?
Well, he was in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. He was the main character in Dawn, the non-ape. The best human in that movie. I loved his performance in that one. I'm
always excited to see Jason Clarke, but I always think that he's somebody else in my brain.
Sure, he has that look.
Yeah, he has that look. But no, he's a phenomenal actor too.
He was also the lead actor in Zero Dark 30. He was also in a great movie called Lawless that he did with Shia LaBeouf and Tom Hardy, which I think is all three of those men's best film, is Lawless. And Shia LaBeouf, maybe you could say something about Honey Boy. If you guys haven't seen Honey Boy, that's a really almost a autobiographical film of Shia LaBeouf's life, done in a different way. And Peanut Butter Falcon is also another great Shia LaBeouf movie. I know, and he's not even in Oppenheimer, but that's how we get. That's how we get into
But unfortunately, Casey Affleck is in Oppenheimer. Unfortunately,
Casey Affleck is in Oppenheimer. The only movie I've ever liked. I think there was a podcast we did where I was like, I liked Manchester by the Sea, but
nobody likes Manchester by the Sea.
My favorite Casey Affleck movie, I would say, is a movie called Ghost Story. He dies in it.
I guess the only movie that I can stand him in is probably the Ocean's 11 movies.
Sure, he gets shit on by
everybody,
but especially his brother, who's played by the son of his dad is from Godfather and Elf.
Oh yeah,
Scott Conn.
Scott Conn. God damn it, he didn't even pop up on the list firsthand.
And his dad's name is James Conn?
Yeah.
Yeah. Boom! I didn't use IMDb. That was my brain working. Took me a while. Anyway.
Back to the movie at hand.
Yes.
Jack Quaid, who I've brought up a couple of times, who I absolutely adore. If I was 10 years younger... I
don't think you have to think about yourself being younger.
No, well, I just, Jack Quaid would have been an obsession of mine if I was closer to his age.
Gotcha.
The way that I am, obsessed and in love with Sebastian Stan and Oscar Isaac, of course, and Tom Hiddleston. Like, younger Maggie would have been all over Jack Quaid. He is so fucking cute. But I really just, like, appreciate the man for, like, he's a great actor. He's a great voice actor. Of course, he's Boimler on Star Trek Lower Decks, my absolute beloved Boimler. He was great as a live-action Boimler in Strange New Worlds. He's wonderful in The Boys, even though I haven't watched a lot of The Boys.
He is amazing in The Boys.
Yeah.
He's
like everything I see Jack Quaid in.
That's what I think most people would know him from.
Everything I see Jack Quaid in is just fantastic, and I adore him. So this movie is just filled with people where you're like, fucking good for him. Good for her. Good for them. Getting to be in this huge Christopher Nolan movie, this very important film. Like, you know, I'm happy to see it. I'm happy to see Dave DeSmalchin there because he's such a phenomenal actor. And I feel like Christopher Nolan doesn't work with people that he doesn't wholeheartedly trust and, like, appreciates and endorse, right? Like, obviously he works with a lot of the same people over and over. I'm kind of sad Michael Caine isn't in this movie.
Michael Caine. It's true. It's a Nolan movie and doesn't have Michael Caine in it.
Yeah, and Michael Caine himself was like, really? You couldn't have fit me in there? But I think it was a scheduling thing. I think they just couldn't make it work. But, like, Nolan doesn't work with bad actors. And he doesn't, you know, he picks people for a variety of reasons. But if somebody's in a Nolan movie, like, you know they're going to do the best job they can do. So it's great to see Scotty Grimes there. It's great to see Jack Quaid there. It's great to see Dave DeSmalchin. It's great to see everyone except Casey Affleck. Even Dane DeHaan, who I cannot stand that guy.
The only Dane DeHaan movie I think I like is one of the first movies I think I ever saw him in, which was the movie where he
Valerian?
Becomes a superhero. Now, Valerian's fun, but nobody likes Valerian except for me. I'm the only person who likes Valerian.
Chronicle.
Chronicle, yeah. I love Matt Damon in most things he does, but a lot of times he plays the same character. Matt Damon doesn't have a lot of range.
He doesn't. Matt Damon does not have a lot of range.
There are those occasional movies that I'm really surprised with what Matt Damon does. One of those would be, of course, the one with Robin Williams.
Oh, Good Will Hunting.
Good Will Hunting,
yeah.
I thought was a great Matt Damon performance.
I feel like Matt Damon was a better actor when he was younger.
Right.
And I also think that Matt Damon is better with comedy than drama.
The Matt Damon performances where I'm like, ooh, like, especially in a Nolan film, like, his character in this, completely different from the character in Inception. Or in Interstellar.
I was about to be like, he was in Inception?
Interstellar.
How did I already forget that he was surprised Matt Damon in Interstellar?
Yeah, you got.
Guys, I am recording this a little hungover too, so my brain is not. I am not fully there.
This is also, I think, the second Cillian Murphy performance or role in a Nolan film, since he was also in Inception.
No, Cillian Murphy's done like 6 films with Christopher Nolan. He was in the Batman Begins and The Dark Knight.
True, I forgot.
Although
Scarecrow.
his part in The Dark Knight is very
short.
He's in Inception.
Yes.
He's in.
I love him in Inception.
He's in this one, obviously. This is just off the top of my head.
I mean, he like with Michael Caine. Other than this movie, Christopher Nolan, not only does he pick great actors, or his casting director that he works with picks great actors, but he also loves to work again and again with the same actors over and over. And I think it's fun to see them all come back, like Cillian Murphy and Matt Damon.
Cillian Murphy has been in Oppenheimer, Dunkirk, Inception, and all 3 Batman films.
Wow, I completely forgot about Dunkirk.
I haven't seen Dunkirk. And I want to watch it.
It's really good.
Yeah, and
it is really good.
Haven't seen it.
It's, for whatever reason, I only saw it once, and I don't remember Cillian Murphy in it at all. I remember Tom Hardy in it, who, once again, wears a mask the entire movie.
Well, yeah, that's how Nolan likes him best. Getting into the nuts and bolts of Oppenheimer.
Let's do it.
I think that this is a beautiful film. I know that a lot of people have issues with it because, fucking whatever reasons people have issues with anything anymore these days, especially, is just insane. And everybody has entitled to their opinion, right or wrong. But like a lot of people don't. I guess a lot of people don't like the glorification of Oppenheimer and what he did, because he did kind of, he helped bring about a world that is a lot more dangerous. The film glosses over the people that were living on the land in Los Alamos when
They're talked about.
They're mentioned, but it's not shown how, the Hispanic people and the Native people that lived on that land are close to it.
There's even a line where
shoved out
Oppenheimer,
of the way.
they're like, the government asks Oppenheimer what they should do with the land, and he said, give it back to the Indians. Mm-hmm. It was talked about briefly.
It was talked about briefly, but it wasn't, it wasn't
I also...
complete. I'm just saying that people have issues with this movie and whatever. I love this movie. I enjoyed it the second time a lot more.
Same.
I was more invested into it. And we Barbie'd. We saw Oppenheimer first, and then we went to see Barbie. I'm glad we did it in that order. Seeing it in the theater was a lot of fun, and seeing it in a packed theater was a lot of fun, but my main memories of seeing Oppenheimer in the theater were how staggeringly hot it was in that theater.
That summer they decided no air conditioning for you, when they usually keep theaters so cold. And but it was so hot and it was so packed and hot that I just remember feeling really claustrophobic. I remember obviously the when the bomb goes off, because the sound design in this goddamn movie, so good. And then Robert Downey Jr.'s smile at the end of the film, which has stuck with me because it's just such a perfect RDJ moment. So those are the things that I remembered about seeing this movie. Watching it for a second time, cuddled up on the couch, watching it with Caveman, taking notes, I was so much more into it. I was so much more into Cillian's acting and how well he plays this character. I was so much into all of the actors and what a great job they did. The score, which is phenomenal. The stage and set design, which is great. Like, I was into this movie so much more than I thought it was going to be. And I really thoroughly enjoyed it. And now I see, like, going into the Oscars, I think I was a little like, well, but why isn't Barbie getting more stuff? I absolutely loved Barbie so much. Having watched this movie for a second time and really giving it the chance to study it and watch it and, like, be engrossed by it, I understand why it won all the awards that it did. It's a phenomenally made film. I honestly don't see how this movie glorifies war or glorifies Oppenheimer. I feel, from what I saw, it's World War II. The world is in a state of panic. We know why they did it.
Yeah,
we know why they were
developing
developing
we don't have
it.
To get into.
There was a race between the Germans and the Americans to create a nuclear bomb.
Yeah, like science knew that it could happen.
Science had a theory. The theory was there that it was possible, especially once they were able to break the atom. Mm-hmm. And because at the time, I believe the theory was it was impossible
to split an atom.
Yeah. Thank you, not break. To split an atom was theoretically impossible according to physics, and they discovered, or a German scientist discovered, that it was possible by shooting neutrons. And it's all sciencey stuff that goes above my head for the most part. So anyway, all that aside, we were a world that was very nervous about this fascist regime taking over the entire world.
Yeah, we were worried about the Nazis, and wildly, we still are.
We still, yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
80 years later, we're still fighting Nazis. By the end of the movie, it seems to be complete opposite of, like, but once Oppenheimer and his team create and make a working bomb, it is the government has no interest in Oppenheimer anymore.
Yeah.
Thanks for your work. You're done. He felt like he should have still been included in things. There's a moment where he's waiting by the phone for news about the bomb, because he thought that they would let him know sooner. Like, as soon as it went off, they'd be like, hey, Oppenheimer, guess what? It worked.
Yeah.
We dropped 2 bombs on Japan. And the government didn't care. He did not find out that they even worked until the general public from the news also knew first.
Well, yeah, the moment... Because, like, he really was the father of, you know, the atomic bomb. He helped create this thing. It kind of, you know, he knew that it was possible... And he was the smartest man on Earth, and he could do it, right?
Yeah.
With all these incredible other massively smart scientists, of which I will never be because I don't understand any of this at all. He created this thing. And then, yeah, the government just straight up said, no, thanks, and took it from him and just left him in the dark. And that's what, like, the last half of the movie is about.
When he wanted, what his plans were to not have a weapon. He didn't want a weapon. Once the Nazis... surrendered, he was like, great, we don't need to use this weapon now. Let's use it for practical reasons like nuclear power.
Yeah.
And he really wanted to go the route of nuclear power. The government wanted to make a hydrogen bomb because it was bigger and deadlier. And he had huge regrets when it came to his creation being used as a weapon.
Yeah.
Like, obviously he knew it was going to be a weapon. He knew what he was doing in Los Alamos.
Yeah, but then I don't think
but
that
it
he
really
understood
sank.
it
Until it sank in, and you find out that over 200,000 Japanese were affected by those 2 bombs. And I think that was never a number that he had thought about.
No.
He knew people were going to die. He knew innocent people were going to die. And until, like you said, until it actually happened and he had to live with what he had done, that's immediately when he regretted everything and really pushed for nuclear power instead of weaponizing this creation.
One of my favorite things about this movie is how it delves into the scientists reacting to the morality of this bomb. Of this creation, because it's not just Oppenheimer that struggles with it. You see everyone struggle with it. There's a great moment when after they announce that the bomb has worked, right, and the people at Los Alamos are finally hearing this news for the first time. Jack Quaid has this really beautiful moment of just horror in his eyes, but he still takes a second to, like, shake the hand of the other scientists he had been working with. You know, the people in Los Alamos knew what this thing could be. They understood what it could be capable of, and yeah, they all struggled with the morality of it. And I'm glad that was included, and that you're right. This movie doesn't glorify Oppenheimer for creating something that murdered a bunch of people. It glorifies him for being fucking genius. He is an absolute genius and wildly charming and weirdly sexy. I blame Cillian Murphy for that because Cillian Murphy is really goddamn
definitely
sexy.
Sexier than the real Oppenheimer.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, the man had charm. Like, he had fucking bitches left, right, and center. Like, man. So one of the many, many fun things about the IMDb trivia section is that you get a lot of different outlooks from it's not just information about how the movie is made, it's also sometimes about like the reaction to the film. And one of the things that I found on there, which I thought really cool, was a quote from Denis Villeneuve, who said of this film, "Where Oppenheimer is right now has blown the roof off of my projection. It's a 3-hour movie about people talking about nuclear physics. There's this notion that movies, in some people's minds, become content instead of an art form. I hate that word, content. That movies like Oppenheimer are released on the big screen and become an event brings back a spotlight to the idea that it's a tremendous art form that needs to be experienced in theaters." I don't know. I just felt that was a very beautiful quote from another director who makes incredible art films. And not like art films, but like incredible films that are art. And they are big things. I mean, Dune and Dune 2 are massive hits. They were huge movies. And they were huge movies. I mean, they were each over 2 hours
of those
long,
movies.
you know, and they were just a bunch of people talking about fucking sand. And I'm still kind of, I'm still kind of bummed that we didn't get more sandworm action, is all I'm saying. I don't know, I just found that quote to be beautiful, because Oppenheimer is an incredible film. Like, we could make this a 4-hour podcast where we talk about scene for scene and moment for moment. Like, most of my notes are about Cillian Murphy's, like, acting in different scenes and what a great job he does. But, like, this movie is a movie. You know, it is meant to see on the big screen. If it ever came back, if they did another run of it, like, I would go see this movie on an IMAX screen in a heartbeat. Yeah,
I'd rewatch it.
Yeah,
it's
and
long,
like,
but
it's nice to watch at home because you're at home and you got your beer right there and you can take breaks and pauses. But
at least we've seen it enough that you know exactly.
Yeah.
I love seeing movies that I've seen many. Like, it might happen when we go see Lord of the Rings because it's the director's cut, and that's like
I already
3.5
know where
hours
I'm
long.
peeing.
So
yeah,
there's plenty of
Like,
times you're like, oh, this is a good pee break.
like, oh, Gandalf just walked with Saruman into the
Go get a
the
refill on my
Orthodox.
soda.
Like, I'm gonna go take a pee now. Like, I'm not getting up at all anytime Viggo Mortensen's on screen, but I can definitely take a pee break when Christopher Lee is. Sorry, man. Rest in peace, my dude. But yeah, like, it is an incredible film, and it's a long film, and it's a big film. But damn it, it's just a great fucking movie. I've been kind of teasing Caveman over the last couple days about what a Hans Zimmer Oppenheimer score would have been like. And the reality is, it might have been too much. I don't know if the world could have handled the music that Hans Zimmer would have created for this film. Like,
yeah, I guess because of a scheduling issue, Hans Zimmer instead was doing the score for Dune.
Yeah.
And which is a great score.
it's so fucking phenomenal.
I love everything Hans Zimmer does, and I really love when Hans Zimmer and Christopher Nolan get to work together.
Yeah, I mean, the Batman
It's always
music is...
yeah, everything. Interstellar,
fucking
Inception.
Inception, the music for Inception is so fucking good.
But then we get Ludwig Göransson, who
Did a
just killed it.
phenomenal job.
And he got an Oscar for it.
Yeah,
So
everybody who made this film is at the top of their game.
top of the game.
And it's not just the actor. The cinematography is fantastic. The set design, the costumes.
They were nominated for costumes and makeup. It didn't win, but still,
Nolan insisted that all of his actors always be in period. If they were on set, they were in period costume. Like, he wanted the world to feel immersive. He wanted, like, apparently Emily Blunt wore Uggs under her, if her feet weren't shown, she wore Uggs a lot, and
Nice.
Nolan hated that.
No.
And so she gifted him a pair.
That's great.
At the end of filming. Like, he wanted this world to feel real. And I think it's there.
And I think, him using practical effects definitely worked in making the world feel real. I mean, there was a lot. If you look at behind the scenes footage of them doing some of the shots of what happens inside of a nuclear explosion, all the particles and the it was really neat to see. Like, it was a lot of water stuff, like putting water and like glitter in a cup, putting a camera up against the glass and stirring it real fast, and then you just see the swirling of that effect and the light bouncing off of that glitter back at the camera, making it look like particles flying in the air. And there's a bunch of different techniques they used. We're not going in any particular order with this episode because there's just so much. But
it is a Nolan film, so we're allowed to jump
we're
around.
about to jump around. And
he probably would encourage it.
This is his, I believe he didn't do black and white in any other film other than this and Memento. Going back and forth between black and white and color.
Yeah.
I can't think of another Nolan film that did that.
Kodak. Another IMDb thing really quick, just because you brought up the black and white stuff. Kodak pioneered the first ever black and white IMAX format film, especially for this movie, to ensure color accuracy for its monochrome segments. Kodak is also known for pioneering the Kodachrome film, that was the earliest successful color film in cinematography, made possible by the financing of Louis Strauss himself, who was an investment banker before his career in government and subsequent career focus into atomic energy policy.
That's wild.
So, like, the reason we had such good black and white film is because of Louis Strauss, who is the bad guy of this film.
Yeah, other than the Germans
Other
and the
than-
Japanese
yeah.
and later on the Russians.
Well, yeah, but those are all like...
Well, yeah,
Louis
I get
Strauss was the bad guy.
He was the
for
antagonist.
Oppenheimer.
Yeah, he was the antagonist to the story.
Which
he was the direct antagonist
would love to
to
talk
Oppenheimer. So one thing I wanted to talk about with practical effects that just didn't work for me in this movie was the
bomb.
The bomb.
Yeah.
The nuclear explosion.
It's
was
too
such,
fiery.
It was such a letdown because the whole movie is just building up to this first test.
Yeah.
It's kind of the climax of the movie because once the bomb is tested, the rest of the movie just kind of slows down.
Well, then
you're going through all
it becomes about the morality of
the
the
morality
bomb
of what
and
happened
to Oppenheimer after
him trying to get his security clearance
Yeah.
and being turned down.
The way he got completely railed by the government and by Strauss himself,
Yeah.
all over a misunderstanding
Yeah.
and a couple of
Jealousy.
slights. Yeah.
and,
Fucking
stupid reasons. And so when the bomb finally goes off and you're expecting a great visual, you're expecting a nuclear explosion.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, that's not what you get. You
Well-
get a giant gas explosion, which is how Hollywood usually does these massive fireballs in the air. When they want a huge fireball in the sky, they go with gasoline. It does the big fireballs. There are a bunch of movies that have some amazing fireball scenes, and the fireball in this movie was very big and very tall.
Yeah, it was beautiful, but it wasn't.
It looked nothing like a nuclear explosion.
Well, I mean, if Christopher Nolan could have set off an actual nuke for
Well,
this movie, you
and-
know he would have.
And that's the thing. He could have. There's a behind the scenes thing, of course, on this, and you see them setting up for the explosion, all this gasoline that they use to do it. The problem with gasoline is that once it gets to a certain height, the gas fumes are just burned off, and all you get is smoke. Whereas a nuclear explosion the fireball just continues to go into the sky and expand.
Yeah.
There are YouTubers
Well, I mean,
who get access to TNT. You can buy TNT if you pass all the necessary federal laws, and they do. And there are YouTubers out there who set off TNT explosions in the close to, not at a kiloton amount, but close to a kiloton of TNT has been set off on YouTube for YouTube channels. And there's actually a YouTube video of a kiloton of dynamite actually exploding, and it is mad. The shock wave you see from it, the almost kind of mushroom cloud it creates, that unfortunate 2020 explosion in Beirut was 1.1 kilotons of
ammonium nitrate.
Yeah, that was a bad one, and
that footage
shock
that came
wave
off of that thing was insane.
It was insane. It was an insane and unfortunate accident that happened.
200 at least 218 deaths.
It's a terrible accident.
Yeah.
But that was only 1.1 kilotons.
Yeah.
And so you can imagine when a YouTuber in the middle of the desert does a 1 kilo. Anyway, the
Nobody
footage.
should trust YouTubers to do anything.
They shouldn't. But if a YouTuber can get a hold of it, a production company with $100 million budget
Christopher Nolan
could spend a few more $1 million on some dynamite. Also, not to mention that there is actual footage of the Los Alamos test explosion that they could have used that has been colorized and used in a documentary.
I can understand why Nolan did what he did, right? Because he wanted the practical effect, because he wanted the look and everything. He didn't want something CG'd. He didn't want something, he wanted something that looked
And I
right.
love it. I love
Like,
it. But he could have
It could have been better.
He could have done a practical effect that was bigger.
Yeah.
It was the Trinity test footage. Yeah, the Trinity documentary. There's a documentary called I think it's just called Trinity, but it shows a colorized version of the explosion, and they could have they could have done it. I think Hollywood has enough geniuses and practical special effects that they could have done it, or close to it. It doesn't have to actually
just showed the original footage and all of its grainy sort of.
They could have had a guy rolling the camera
Yeah.
on the side, and you see it through the camera.
I'm literally watching it right now on YouTube, and it is. Yeah, no, it is. It is just so much grander than the actual bomb that we saw in Oppenheimer.
Yeah, and
Jesus Christ, it just keeps going too.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Much.
Yeah, this could have been exactly how they showed it.
I remember when I watched. This was the big part of the movie that I didn't like. Was the first time I watched in the theater. When it actually happens, you're really expecting a nuclear explosion, and then I see it, and I was like, "Wait a minute." Was the first nuclear explosion not that big? Like, I was starting to think, like, oh, well, maybe they know something I don't know. Why is it such a small explosion?
That was beautiful.
And
that was beautiful. Oh god, it was only like 55 seconds. My
favorite...
The
other thing that they pointed out was when the light from the explosion goes off. Obviously, it's this really bright white light because it's so, it's a nuclear explosion, so it's obviously massively bright, brighter than the sun because it's right in front of you. They used, when the light in the background has this huge white, the light in the foreground where everybody's watching it from the ground is almost like a blue. It's a day for night shot, or night, so it doesn't look right. The light doesn't look right on the actors. They also use that there's a part where the digital use it or makes fun of the movie a little bit because they obviously used air cannons to show like the shockwave
the air,
which was a little goofy.
So
there's a lot of great things about this movie, and it kind of bummed me out that they couldn't go the extra step to actually kind of if a YouTuber can do it, why can't Christopher Nolan? That's what I'm saying.
That's fair. I mean, but if you think about it, there were YouTubers that did the de-aging on Luke Skywalker better
than Lucasfilm.
Yeah, like, it's, I don't know. I can't speak to that because for me, the bomb scene is about the sound. It's about the anticipation and the anxiety of that scene, and then it all comes down to beautiful silence, right? It's, you hear Oppenheimer's breath, you hear the quiet before the shockwave hits, and I think that moment is very prolonged. And so for me, I'm not paying attention to the special effects. I mean, the special effects, yes, I'm paying attention to. I'm not paying attention to like the lighting and the shockwave or any of that as much, because for me that scene is about the sound design and just how stunning it is. The sound design is stunning in this fucking movie, and I think for me that's where my focus tends to land. But now that you brought it up, I'm going to be looking for the day to night scenes and everything else, because you're right, it's always those scenes are always squirrely, but
the sound was.
But you're right, the bomb
absolutely amazing.
The sound's phenomenal, and the bomb is a bit of a letdown. I agree. I guess that Christopher Nolan wanted to do not a lot of like CG effects, but maybe he should have. But we can't say because the man's a goddamn genius. Like he's, And
I know the whole movie was not just centered around this bomb exploding in Los Alamos.
Although ironically, it does take place in the center of the movie.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is about an hour left after the bomb goes off. I don't know. It was just after such because as they're getting ready for it and it's raining and they're like, is the storm going to pass? And then it passes and they go for it and they're talking about watching the meter going below a certain amount of voltage or amps or whatever it was,
putting the fate of the world into Josh Peck's hands.
Yeah, and the curiosity of, are we about to ignite the atmosphere and destroy the world if this goes wrong?
Which, even if it went right, they still did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the
end of the movie.
That's the end of the movie when Oppenheimer and Einstein are talking together. That's what Strauss missed out on. Is are we going to destroy the world by this bomb? Technically, not that bomb, but
But yeah, we
you
did.
know, the world
Yeah.
is always on the clutches of midnight, as the
Doomsday Clock.
doomsday clock is
I know.
always threatened to be at.
And these days, it's so much worse considering just everything that's happening in the world and all the horrific things going on. You know, there's
People
always
are
that
amazing,
fear.
right?
So speaking of Strauss,
Yes.
first of all, one of the things that I love about this movie and any movie that has this theme, because it really shows on a very grand scale to a bunch of people just how horrible, small, petty, insecure men have been to this world. This world is what it is for all of its troubles and terrors and awful, awful things. It's all because of fucking small, petty men that want to be grand and want to have power over everything else.
Power, and they want their name to
They
be
want
remembered.
their name to be remembered. They want to be something bigger than they are. And this world is constantly fucked by that.
The world pays the price for men's
Insecurities.
inhibitions.
Strauss and Oppenheimer they're oil and water. Oppenheimer is constantly a dick to Strauss.
Yes.
Kind of for the fun of it, I think. Because we all have that friend that we, like, you know, make fun of, and then we all have that enemy that we just, like, lean in on, be it a coworker or a girlfriend, you know, your friend's boyfriend, or, you know, your neighbor or something. We all have people in our lives that we're like, you know what, fuck that guy, and secretly you're just terrible about them.
Yeah.
You know, we all have those people. But, like, Oppenheimer and Strauss just were not a good mix, and Oppenheimer was always a dick to Strauss and humiliated him publicly a few times. And that's kind of, you know, and Strauss was a petty bitch, and he took that personally.
He used his power
To smother Oppenheimer, which ends up screwing him out of a cabinet position.
Yeah, cabinet position, yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and just admit right now that I don't know what Strauss does to Oppenheimer to fuck him over. I've seen this movie twice. I paid attention both times. I still don't fully understand.
He essentially, Oppenheimer wanted the security clearance to at least have input on what happened the future of the weapon that he was in charge of. He wanted a say in the future of atomic energy / weapons, and Strauss
took that from him.
Just completely took it away from him by controlling who the people on the board.
Yeah, well, by doing that hearing in the first place, he was the one that, I mean, he put all of the right bugs and the right folders into the right hands to get that hearing started,
and gave his own lawyer nothing to go off of, and
he thought he did this all in secret, but he wasn't cunning enough to keep it secret, which is why the hero of this movie is Rami Malek, who comes in, like, he's in the background for a couple of scenes, and you're like, yo, does this guy have a line? Like, he's just standing there, just, you know, with that weird mug, just doing his thing. And then, you know, he comes in out of nowhere to fucking burn Strauss so hard.
Burn all his hopes and dreams to the ground.
In fact, this movie because of this movie, people were interested in who Rami Malek played, and it was why that guy got a Wikipedia page, is because of this movie. Because everybody saw Rami Malek swoop in out of nowhere and drop a fucking atomic bomb.
So this guy's name was lost in history?
It wasn't lost to history, but, like...
Not lost to history from historians, but lost to history, I guess, from the general public
a
little more?
Yeah,
people who don't dive deep into...
like Oppenheimer's life.
There's people who look at Wikipedia for answers, and there's people who actually read books.
We can be both. I do both. Damn, as I'm literally scrolling Wikipedia right now, like...
No, I love Wikipedia, and I actually pay $3 a year for Wikipedia.
You're better than I am. I've never given Wikipedia an ounce of my money.
$3. It's $3, and I love Wikipedia.
Oh, dude.
But when I was in college, the amount of research I had to do in libraries with physical books.
Like going to the library to access encyclopedias
when
was
at the time
totally something we had to do as children.
The internet was totally, like, when I went to college, the internet was totally around, and so was Wikipedia. But
look at the dude that Rami Malek played. Looks just like him. Do you not see Rami Malek's profile there?
Not really.
Really? Dude, I pulled that
like
up.
Josh Hartnett at a young age.
Actually, it does kind of look a little bit like Josh Hartnett, but we put Josh Hartnett in glasses now.
Josh Hartnett looks so much smarter in glasses.
Oh God, yeah.
He looks so much more believable than a leading man.
Is it weird that I just don't like Josh Hartnett? Has always just been a no for me. Like I remember in like high school, I had girlfriends that were like, "Oh my God, Josh Hartnett, he's so cute." I was always like,
he was always put in movies, kind of like Josh Hartnett has always seemed like a Freddie Prinze Jr. kind of actor.
Yeah, but Freddie Prinze Jr. at least is better. I don't know. He's first of all, he's had a better career, and he's still prolifically going.
Josh Hartnett is too. It's just not in movies that we see.
I can't even.
If you
find
look
him on
at
this list.
If you look at his IMDb page, he at least does stuff. It's just not stuff we see.
Yeah,
watch,
but
or care about.
Freddie Prinze Jr. is doing stuff that we see.
Freddie Prinze Jr. does a lot of voice work.
He does
a lot of animated stuff and video games, which is great. I love Freddie Prinze Jr. because he was a big part of my late teens, early 20s. This is the very first Christopher Nolan movie, and I was very surprised when it happened, that has nudity in it.
Oh God, and it's so uncomfortable.
It is out of nowhere. Like there's just no Christopher Nolan. He usually has no nudity in his films, and all of a sudden there's Florence Pugh topless. There's Cillian Murphy sitting with his legs crossed but completely nude. There's a really awkward sex scene between them in the hearing.
Oh, okay. So the fact that they had so they knew they had to shoe in the I have become death, the destroyer of worlds.
They
line,
really
right?
shoot it in.
They had to put that
Awkwardly.
that line into the movie.
The way they did it.
But the way that they did it with a naked Florence Pugh mounting Cillian Murphy and making him read that to her while she's fucking him is so awkward.
It's so weird.
Such a weird moment.
Such a weird moment.
That it took me out of the film to the point where I was like, oh, Christopher Nolan has never done sex scenes for a reason because he's not good at them.
Not good at directing a sex scene.
Yikes.
Yeah.
It wasn't, and then later on, that really awkward scene where she's naked on top of him in the
hearing.
The hearing. The first time I watched this movie, I was like, oh God, that was so fucking unnecessary. Why'd they have to do that?
I get it.
The second time, yeah, because it is Kitty. It is Kitty's moment of realizing what that relationship really meant. I think she always knew what...
But now he has to say in detail, on record, what he did. And
then that was where... Because Kitty is seeing that humiliation.
Yeah. Well, it is humiliating. It's very embarrassing for him. Extremely embarrassing for him. And what better way to show an embarrassing moment is being nude in front of a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Or you're talking about a very intimate moment with a lover while your wife is sitting behind you. Mm-hmm. So her straddling him and gyrating up against him while, it's a very uncomfortable scene. It's a very uncomfortable moment for everybody, for him and his wife.
Yeah.
And so it made sense having that scene. It wasn't gratuitous.
No. It wasn't necessary.
It could have shot it a little bit higher above the table. I don't know if we needed to see Florence Pugh's ass, but also I did appreciate too the first time you see them nude. Yeah, it's shot like full nudity in the chairs that they're sitting in, but then that's only one quick scene because the moment they go back, everything's shot from the chest up, a little much closer. So. I think that helped not making it so gratuitous and even more unnecessary.
Yeah, I don't know. I still don't fully...
Like, there are ways that people have been doing sex scenes. People have been doing sex scenes in movies forever without showing any nudity
I prefer the second... I prefer the nude scene in the hearing, in that tiny room, over any of the other nudity in this movie, because that's the only time that I felt like it made sense.
Right. I mean,
the rest of it doesn't make sense.
I guess they
for
just
the
wanted
story.
to show that they were definitely cheating on each other.
But what do you think is the best romantic story in a Christopher Nolan movie? because
romance is never
a thing. Like, there are
the closest
romances.
There are romances, but it's never good relationships.
No.
Like the Magic one.
The Prestige.
The Prestige, there is a lot of relationships in there.
None of them are
but
good.
none of them are good.
Yeah.
And it's also this is also the second movie, if you count Prestige as the first movie, this is the second movie where the mistress kills herself because she can't have the main lead. Scarlett Johansson killed herself because she couldn't have Hugh Jackman's character.
Yeah.
And Florence Pugh killed herself because she couldn't have Cillian Murphy.
Yeah, or her character was murdered. The history still doesn't fully know what happened there. Just really quick, Memento, tragic love story. I mean, it is the basis that movie begins with, right? Like, the plot is him trying to figure out his wife's murder, and it seemed like he was happy with his wife for the time.
He was happy with his wife before she was murdered.
So, and we do see moments of happiness there, but so she's murdered. Insomnia, I don't really remember much of a love story.
There's no love interest in Insomnia, unless it's between Al Pacino and Robin Williams.
Batman Begins has Rachel, which...
Rachel.
Yeah.
I don't like Katie Holmes' character at all in that one. I like...
Maggie Gyllenhaal is 1,000 times better.
1,000 times better actress.
You know what we said, that Christopher Nolan doesn't work with bad actors? He has. But then they don't come back.
They don't come back because he's like, oh, maybe that was a bad choice.
Yeah. The Prestige has a tragic love story. The Dark Knight has a tragic love story. Inception has a tragic love story. The Dark Knight Rises has a...
Wait, what's Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Another kind of suicide, but her brain was scrambled eggs.
Yeah. The Dark Knight Rises, I mean, technically he does go off
he
with...
has a lot of women committing suicide in his movies.
Yeah.
I never noticed that before.
A lot of women die in Christopher Nolan. A lot of women die
in Christopher Nolan
movies.
Jeez.
The Dark Knight Rises, he does go off with Catwoman at the end. Like, if you believe the ending of the movie is what it is, I mean, Alfred sees
the two of them together seemingly looking happy, so that is a happy ending.
Yeah, I guess.
For
maybe.
From what we see.
And then Interstellar, which the whole thing is saved by love anyways, but it's more the familiar love of a father and a daughter versus... But,
there's kind of a story with
Anne
Hathaway's character, but you never actually see her reunite
Nope, because he's dead.
And we're that's right, he is dead. Yeah. And we are led to believe that there could be something between Matthew McConaughey and Anne Hathaway by the end, but we don't see it.
Yeah, no.
Because what's-her-face is like, go find her, she's waiting for you.
Yeah. Dunkirk, I'm assuming has no romance in it.
No, it doesn't.
I didn't watch Tenet and won't.
Tenet has no love interest that I can remember, but I only saw it once.
And then Oppenheimer, which, Kitty and Robert have a very long and successful marriage in that they're together for a long time, but it is definitely a troubled marriage. Obviously there's infidelity. Kitty is the world's worst parent. Like, those poor fucking kids.
Well, I think she was experiencing some
major postpartum depression.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I feel like that was something. And in the 40s, I don't know how well that was taken care of. Any kind of depression. You're usually sent to a hospital for...
postpartum depression is different in a lot of women. I was very fortunate to not experience it, and I was terrified that I would. But, postpartum depression is different for a lot of people. But back in the 40s, there was no real
Oppenheimer
help for women.
Oppenheimer was Kitty's fourth husband?
Yes.
First two died?
One...
They didn't talk about the first one a lot.
No, just that it came and went very quickly.
Yeah, and she was very young when they got married. And then the second one, he died. I can't remember.
Yeah, man.
But Oppenheimer was her fourth husband.
Mm-hmm.
So, and... you see her doing a lot of drinking.
Yeah, a lot of smoking.
I
mean, they're not great parents.
They're not a great... No. Especially... Yes, we all know how kind of bad men were at being parents in the 30s and 40s and before. I mean, men are very much like...
Even still, there's some terrible...
Of course. I mean... Well, the world sucks, but...
You're a good parent.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I try. I thought we were just talking about me.
Oh.
No, you are an amazing mother.
Thank you.
Yes. But yeah, the scene where the baby's crying and Kitty's too depressed and drunk to take care of him, and Oppenheimer has no idea how to be a father.
Yeah.
And his brain is on other things. And so he gives them to the family friends.
Yeah, he gives them to some family friends for a while.
And the way the family friend, the guy, was like, well, you're a massive genius.
Yeah.
You can't handle being a genius and a father at the same time, so you get a pass.
Yeah.
And that whole explanation, I think I wrote 1940s men that make such... Oppenheimer should have never been a father.
No, he shouldn't have.
When people give geniuses or artists a pass on their behavior because they're a genius or an artist or famous is, to me, just absolute bullshit, and just it's completely passing the blame of their actions.
I wrote down, people are too forgiving of his assholery.
They are, because
he's a genius.
He's a genius.
I think at one point Matt Damon calls him out for being like, people have given you too much. Like, somebody calls out Oppenheimer at one point in the movie saying, people have given you too much leeway for your brilliance, but you don't just get to be an asshole.
Right.
Matt Damon is so fucking good in this movie.
I really enjoyed his performance and his character.
And I loved that, like, despite the fact that they were two very different men, I loved that Matt Damon's character at the end of the film, in the trial, in that quiet little trial, in the hearing in that little room, Matt Damon is like, they ask him, like, would you hire Oppenheimer today to run the nuclear program? And he was like, by these current guidelines, no, I couldn't, but I wouldn't have hired any of the people that I put on the Manhattan Project.
Right.
It doesn't matter, because this is still one of the best fucking people
in the time.
exists.
Yeah.
I loved that moment of Matt Damon's standing up for Oppenheimer.
Time and necessity forced their hand to hire some people that they really wouldn't have hired for this project in the past. They would have gone with other people if they could have, but they had their hands tied on a lot of things with how fast they needed it done, and discretion, and there's a bunch of reasons why these scientists were chosen for the job that they did. One of my favorite theories and that was mentioned in this movie that I had never heard before. Obviously, the Germans were in the same nuclear race as we were to get a bomb made in time. I love when somebody brings up that the whole reason the Germans were slacking in their development of the bomb was because Hitler refused to hire Jewish scientists to help, and if he had, they probably would have beat us. There's it's nobody knows for sure, but there was a probability that they could have beat us in the race of making a working atom bomb. But because he refused, his blind hate for Jews,
Jewish people,
definitely hindered the progress for the Germans. I loved hearing that. Just like,
but if you think about it, America almost did the same thing with
foot.
Communists. Because so many of the scientists back then were interested in the American Communist Party, and the government's always been terrified of the commies. So. And that's another major thread throughout this film is communism that I, again, don't fully understand. I understand it in the context of this movie, and I understand it in the concept of American history, or at least what I was taught about communism in American history, which I'm sure is completely fucked up based on a Californian public school education. I don't know. It's still one of those things that like why they were super against commies. Like, I don't know. We don't have to get into it either. It's just another one of those things that, like, when they talk about communism in movies and they show, anything from the McCarthy era, or just like why it was so bad for Oppenheimer, my brain just kind of makes wave sounds, and
there's a lot of things that happened during the McCarthy era, and
that are so fucked up. I mean, I understand how fucked up it is.
And communism, I mean, we're not going to get into
communism. We can't.
Yeah, it's essentially just a political stance on socialism. We're not even going to get into it. It's so much.
It's a lot, and it's always
a lot.
like
Essentially, Americans were so scared of it.
Yeah.
Because of because there was for a lot of Americans there was American communism and there was Russian communism.
Yeah.
Russian communism was bad, and American communism was something that a lot of people thought could be a good thing.
Yeah.
But in the end, mirrored Russian communism, and there were people. There's a long history of people being blacklisted from Hollywood and other industry jobs. We even see Oppenheimer's own brother having to. A lot of people had to work really shitty jobs because
after the Manhattan
Project because they would not get hired because of their dealings with the Communist Party.
Yeah. So like I get it, but again, much like whenever any person starts to talk to me about which oils in their food they don't want in there, when people start talking about like communism, my brain just, like I said, I just start hearing wave sounds. I'm on a beach somewhere, and it's just one of those things that I'm just like, Oscar Isaac's face. Communism. Like, on the beach.
It's like the Peanuts parents talking to him.
It is very much, yeah. It is 100% that for me sometimes. So.
I mean, yeah. Anything that threatens the freedom and security of America is always a huge thing, obviously, because we love our freedom that's not even real. Anyway.
I read on IMDb, there are a couple really cute things that I read about on the trivia section about the filming of this movie. For instance, the actor Tom Conti, who played Albert Einstein, claimed that he really enjoyed walking around Harvard dressed as Einstein. Because they filmed those scenes at Harvard, and
he looked great. He dressed up as Einstein.
Yeah, he was a great Einstein, and so he really enjoyed the kind of the fuss that he got about that. And then when the author Kai Bird, who co-wrote the American Prometheus, when he met Cillian Murphy for the first time in costume, the first thing he said to him was, "Dr. Oppenheimer, I've been waiting a long time to meet you." To which Cillian Murphy just laughed and shook his hand and then praised the work of the book. But I think that that's really cute that, people got to, for a moment, experience meeting these long dead, heroes of science that they looked up to. And I just...
That's cute.
It's adorable. It's one of those neat little things that you're like, oh.
There are two quotes in this movie that I wrote down that I really like. I don't want the culmination of 3 centuries worth of physics turned into a weapon.
Yeah, David Krumholtz said that because he didn't want to be a part of
That's right. Yes, David Krumholtz. And he kind of just leaves the movie after that.
Yeah, he pops up a couple more times in like the future for Oppenheimer.
He didn't work at...
no, but he wasn't a part of...
He wasn't part of the Manhattan Project.
Manhattan Project, which I think is great.
No, it's a great... From a scientist's point of view, that's a great quote of just like...
Like, I think that he knew that it was going to happen, but he didn't want to have his soul.
He didn't want any part of it.
Yeah,
he didn't want to be
blood on his
part
hands.
of turning... Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He didn't want a guilty conscience. Somebody else says a bomb falls on the just and the unjust, which...
is also an incredible line.
Incredible line that's still prominent today. I do like that a way for Oppenheimer to distance himself away from what he was actually doing. He insists people call it the device instead of the bomb. I think it really is his way of disconnecting the reality of what he was actually building by calling it a device. Like, we're just using our smart scientist brains to create a device that's never been built before, not really admitting to himself what it actually was until
it does happen.
Until it does happen, and then he has to live with what he's done. Like you said, I know you didn't like Casey Affleck's character, but I found him to be really creepy.
Oh, he was terrifying.
Because of his job, like who that character actually was.
Yeah, just the implications of his dealings. He was not
He's an interrogator.
He wasn't a good person.
No, he's not a good person. He works for the government to do not nice things. The scary interrogator, smart. Oppenheimer is smart in certain ways, in the science ways, and Casey Affleck is a smart interrogator, detective. And when they're talking together, and Oppenheimer's trying his hardest not to actually name names, but just say that something's going on, was bad on his part because he's so terrible.
Oh, he's so
with
bad
people.
at lying. Yeah, he's such an awkward human being.
But he might know when he's in his lab, and he's bad in the lab too. He admitted that he's a terrible lab person. Like, he knows his stuff, but he wasn't the person putting the things together. He had a team where he was like, you do this, you do that, you do this. And he just kind of organized it and managed it. But
Oppenheimer couldn't run a burger stand?
A burger stand, or hot dog stand, or however it was put. The timeline makes me very dizzy. The way it goes back, because at least I could figure out the pattern with Memento.
Yeah.
Like, all the black and white scenes are in chronological order from the beginning, and then all the colored scenes happen after all the black and white scenes in a different order. And it's going from the black and white scenes are going forward to, or going in a straight line, whereas the colored scenes are going backwards, and so they're kind of like crossing paths like that. And it helps too, because I have my DVD version of Memento lets me watch it in chronological order if I want to. They re-edited the whole movie to make it chronological, so you really understand it. And
is it a better movie that way?
No, well, it's fun to watch after you've seen it.
Yeah, but it's not how you should watch it the first time.
No, because the whole surprise ending happens at the beginning.
Yeah.
Or in the middle, I should say, since all the black and white stuff happens first. You watch the movie, it starts in black and white, then turns to color, and that's like the moment it turns to color, you see the ending, and so then the rest of the movie is just kind of a drag because it's already past the point of what you were watching. Anyway, it's a fun way to watch it, but not the preferred way. The preferred way is the way Nolan did it. But if you get confused watching it the preferred way and really want to watch it, come over to my place. I've got the... Because I don't think they don't sell that DVD anymore. Hey, physical media, yay! Buy it. But yeah, I would like to watch an Oppenheimer version that's in chronological order just to help me understand a few things, because it feels like it's, especially after the bomb test.
Yeah.
It is so back and forth between black and white and color, and I'm not sure where the timeline is, and
because the
conversations seem all over the place.
There's black and white scenes that take place in the past and in the present for Robert, because it's what is color is Oppenheimer's vision, right? It's his part of his story, which is like what actually happened, right? Whereas the black and white stuff is more speculative.
It's coming from Strauss's point of view.
So it's interesting in that way. But yeah, it does get a little confusing in the last hour, jumping back and forth between like the quote unquote trial that Oppenheimer has in the little tiny room versus then the Senate trial for Strauss trying to get into a cabinet position, into conversations that they've had together, and moments that were filmed in both black and white and color, and then moments that weren't. Like, it is a little all over the place, but I did understand it a bit more this time, although I still don't fully understand exactly how Strauss screwed over Oppenheimer, other than just he was able to. I don't know, like there is a little bit of the Christopher Nolan back and forth confusion there, but it doesn't take away from the movie for me. Like, I enjoy, because it feels like this big puzzle piece, right? And like you're trying to, and that's a Christopher Nolan thing. I mean, The Prestige is a huge puzzle that you've got to put together, and you don't get that You don't get that last piece until the very end, and then you suddenly see the full picture, and it's mind-blowing, right? Same with Memento. Same with Inception. And in fact, Inception has missing pieces of the puzzle that we're still searching for to this day, but that's the fun of it, right? Whereas, like, the Dark Knight and the Batman movies don't have that. They're more straightforward.
They're very straightforward,
movies.
traditionally.
And it's not to say that they're bad films.
No.
They're great films.
Some of his best, in my opinion.
But I enjoy when you let Nolan go full Nolan. I mean, although
Except Nolan going full Nolan is Tenet.
Yeah, and nobody
which
enjoyed
is,
that.
like, the word Tenet is a palindrome, and that movie is a palindrome, because instead of it being like, this scene is reversed from this chronologically, and this scene is forward in this chronologically, or the editing is all scrambled in some of his movies. Tenet literally has things happening forwards and backwards at the same time in the same scene that you're watching.
Yeah.
People are literally walking forward while people in the background are walking backwards. And then the next scene, you're seeing it from the other point of view, and now these people are walking forwards, and those people. It is.
Well, so there's clearly a difference between, like, letting him go full Nolan in Tenet and going full Nolan in Oppenheimer, because Oppenheimer didn't call for that sort of pure insanity. And I don't even think it really called
at
for
its base. It's
like
just
the
a
last
biography.
hour being a bunch of like flitting around. But I enjoyed it. I don't know. It doesn't bother me.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the movie despite the weird editing. I know that maybe 2 or 3 more viewings of this movie, I might get it even better on what's happening when in history.
It's wild that this 3-hour-long, intense biopic is a movie that you have to watch at least 3 or 4 times to fully get.
Which I do like, those kind of movies.
Yeah.
I love going back and finding new things every time I watch a movie. And like you said at the beginning of the podcast, watching it a second time made me like the movie more than I did the first time. I think my hopes were just so much higher on certain scenes, on certain aspects of the movie, especially the explosion. But that aside, still solid film. Still, I'm not upset anymore that it won Best Picture.
I'm not either.
Like I said,
deserved it.
Like I said, the 2023 Oscars were some of my favorite of the awards.
And you
shows.
saw all 10 of
I did.
the movies. I mean, you saw one after the awards, but you have seen all 10 of those films.
Yeah. But
would you say that of those 10, Oppenheimer's the...
There's still other films that I would have rather have won.
So it's a personal preference over a...
The Zone of Interest was a jaw-droppingly amazing and historically needed film, not just for cinema, but also just for people to need to watch on. And not to get too political right now, but even the director of The Zone of Interest in his speech made something very...
He had a very poignant, note about what's going on in Palestine,
right,
and the dehumanization of the Palestinians and the Muslim people over there.
The way people acted in Germany, knowing what was happening on the in their backyard, and the way they could easily ignore it, is being seen today still.
Yeah.
And not
horrifyingly,
not just in Palestine. There's wars and death.
There's shit going on in the Congo. There's shit going on
all over the world, and here we are doing a podcast. I mean,
it's a nightmare world. War is horrifying, and what human beings have done to this world is horrifying. And
over the course of its entire history, human history is full of war and death for a lot of times. For
such
the dumbest reasons.
We are capable of such incredible things in science, in art, in life. Just the mere existence that I am sitting here right now, and all the generations of people that have had to survive to get my ass in this chair at this moment.
Yeah.
And it's insane. Like this world and what people are is amazing, and it's beautiful. But
we're
big
capable.
egos
We're
and
capable of amazing
insecurities,
things. Yeah.
And men have fucked it up so much, and they continue to fuck it up, and it's
And
just
even-
horrifying.
And even
And sad.
war aside, even if there was no, let's say,
Yeah.
in a perfect world, there's no war, but we still have so many other issues, like the fact that millions of people go hungry every day.
Oh yeah.
Is not.
When this
it's
world-
something that that could be solved
Yeah.
easily. There's enough. There's enough food.
There's
on
enough
this planet.
abundance
There's
on this
so
planet
much abundance on this
That
planet.
nobody should ever go hungry.
A fact that that's pretty shitty, that just is always in my head, is that Americans alone waste enough food, not just eat enough food. They waste enough food to fill every football stadium in America every year. You could fill edible food that's just wasted.
Yeah.
Whether we just throw it away because we don't want anymore, or it goes bad because we bought
Didn't
too
get to
much.
it. Yeah.
That's the biggest problem, is that people consume more than they need, and a lot of times it's so much more than they need that it gets thrown away.
Mm-hmm.
And I work at a grocery store, and so does Maggie.
Yeah.
And one thing that I am proud of is the amount of food that our stores give back to food banks.
Mm-hmm.
And food banks are so necessary
They're
these
so
days.
important.
They are one of the most important charities out there right now, in my opinion. Food and water.
I'm glad that you see it that way. I'm glad that you, Caveman, the man that I've been with for 18 years, who I love more than anything on this planet, I'm glad that you see these things and you are aware of the horrors of this world, because I could imagine being married to a person that would be indifferent not only to the suffering, but also indifferent to the message that this movie has, which is war's fucked up and we are going to destroy this planet for stupid reasons.
Like, even Oppenheimer, he knew that nuclear power was for humanity would be a much better. Obviously, it progresses humanity in the right direction.
Yeah.
Whereas weaponizing nuclear energy, obviously, it's
taking us down a different
there's one
road.
purpose. There's
Yeah.
only one purpose for a nuclear bomb, and that's to destroy. That's it.
Yeah, it's just a kill.
Whereas his vision
Yeah.
was how can we progress humanity, and where it gets us away from coal and using up our water and
Using up these finite resources that this planet has.
Of course, nuclear energy does use a lot of water, but not as much as dams and other things like that. But but I mean, this movie has some great messages in it, and through all of the kind of excitement of watching this team come together and create one of history's biggest moments in a time where we truly believed that the only way we could stop Japan was to scare them off with look what we could do, look what we have the power to do to your tiny country.
Yeah.
Which the reason, like Oppenheimer even says, the reason why they didn't consider the H-bomb for Japan was because the target is too small.
Yeah.
Because the H-bomb was such a massive, destructive.
The hydrogen bomb exists, right?
It does.
Has it ever been used in war?
Tested. No, we have, as far as I believe, I did take history in college a couple times.
Yeah.
And obviously high school. I believe that the only nuclear bombs that have been ever used against an enemy were on Japan.
Yeah.
Everything else has just been test.
Yeah, tests and accidents.
There's never been a nuclear bomb accident.
No,
there have been a
but
nuclear plant
there have been
accidents.
nuclear
Yes.
accidents. Yes.
Yes. In Russia and in Japan.
It's just horrifying what these people. They knew what they were creating, and they knew what their creations would be used for, and I think that's ultimately the most important message of this movie is the morality of what they've done and the way that Oppenheimer was, guilt-ridden for the rest of his life. I mean, whether or not you believe in a heaven or hell, I don't think Oppenheimer's in the good place.
That's debatable.
That's debatable, but I don't think
He wasn't an evil man.
No.
It's not like he went out and was just like, oh, fuck yeah, I can't wait to kill some Nazis and some Japanese.
But he's,
I said, it was a different time during a time where they absolutely believed that there was a possibility that the Nazis could take over the entire world.
Yeah.
I mean, the way that they were just destroying Europe. Okay, so there were obviously 2 locations for the bombs being dropped. Hiroshima.
That scene.
Hold on. Hiroshima and
Nagasaki.
A part of me appreciates that the government wasn't just like, doesn't matter, let's just drop it on the most highly populated areas.
Yeah, they didn't go straight
Let's just
for
take
Tokyo.
out the government, like drop it right on their government, drop it right, They chose areas of industry that had they were hoping for the least amount of casualties.
Yeah. They were strategic locations.
They were thought out. But the part where the senator
general,
I forget who he was now, played by, I can't remember his name, but he's Dexter's father in the Dexter series, and he's been in 100 other things. But it's not important. When he says that he wanted Kyoto to be taken off of the list of locations because
he honeymooned there.
Honeymoon was like the part he added to it, but he was like, he took it off because of its cultural significance to the people of Japan, which I appreciated. But then he added, plus we took our honeymoon there, and it's a beautiful place. And I found that to be just a little more
the disassociation of that line, the fact that this man was deciding what city in Japan, what part of Japan was going to get destroyed at a phenomenal level. And he chose to skip over a city that he respected. He respected the Japanese enough and their culture to be like, we're not going to destroy this one city because of its artistry and its culture and its value. But also, I've been there and I liked it, so I don't want to see that.
It's a beautiful place, and I don't want to destroy that beautiful place.
In his head, it's a horrifying moment, and even Oppenheimer reacts to the horror of that moment. And it's sad that that conversation had to even be used in the first place. I never thought about, growing up as an American's weird because you're taught about the atomic bomb and you're taught about what happened in Hiroshima, and you're taught about these things, but it is very much from the skewed vantage point of, look at the great thing we did, and sure, a bunch of people died, but it was great and it was important, and go America, we did this. And I never once sat down and thought about what it took to choose that place, right?
Yeah.
And the weight on the souls of the people that chose that, and where some people disassociated and just saw the job for what it was, other people struggled with the morality of it. And that is such an important scene, and it is one of the scariest scenes in the movie.
They also, their reasoning for dropping the bombs on Japan in the first place was they believed that the Japanese absolutely would never surrender. They would fight to the bitter end.
Yeah.
And so they really had to step up the game, in their opinion, to be able to win. And it's just it's always a bit of oxymoron when weapons of mass destruction are talked about. We have to destroy lives in order to save lives.
Yeah.
American lives are more important. So we're going to save the soldiers who are in the Pacific. We're going to save their lives by attacking Japan in such a brutal way. You were talking about not too long ago, this morning, about how the movie Godzilla Minus One, had surpassed
Oppenheimer as the number one movie, the number one blockbuster on IMDb. which is interesting because Oppenheimer is about the creation of the horrific device that creates Godzilla, right? Like they're two halves of the same coin. It is the movie about the creation of the atomic weapon that was used against Japan, and then Japan's creation to understand or to show what happened to their country after the dropping of that bomb, right? Because that's what Godzilla is. It is, Godzilla is an allegory for the nuclear weapons used against them.
Yeah.
Godzilla Minus One is the better movie. Like, Oppenheimer is a phenomenally good film, and I actually, going into this movie, I was going to rate it a lot higher than I think I'm going to right now. But that being said, it's because Godzilla Minus One is such a unique and beautiful and heartbreaking and important look at the survivor's guilt of the people who lived after those bombs went off, and the horrors that they faced in their lives and their health and their families and rebuilding and all of it. It is just the most terrifying reaction to what these people actually experienced, and it is all in Godzilla. Like, Godzilla is that monster.
I mean, the original Godzilla was made, I think, 9 years after the bomb dropped on their country.
I mean,
as a representation of that experience.
Godzilla is Oppenheimer's creation just as much as the atomic bomb was, because it was a country, it was the artists of a country trying to express what they went through the allegory of a giant monster, but that giant monster wouldn't exist if it weren't for the Manhattan Project. Right. So it is interesting to view it in that lens. And of course then Americans took Godzilla and they paired him up with King Kong, and they've got him fucking sleeping like a cat in the Coliseum. And
yeah, isn't he so cute?
Out there doing, Godzilla stuff. And
Godzilla in the American version, at least these last 3, 4...
He's like the hero.
He's the hero. He's the good guy. He's here to save humanity. Yeah. He's here to save the world.
So once again, Americans have taken something.
Got the wrong message
from
a movie again
fucking message,
in a remake.
Always. Hollywood took the wrong message out of the story. They went, people like this big monster because he's a big monster and he destroys stuff, and not people like this story because of the allegory.
Which is why a lot of Godzilla fans hate the American versions. Yeah. I mean, if you haven't seen the original Godzilla movie, it is so...
You know what?
Such a good... I know you haven't.
I know. And I want to. Because Godzilla Minus One is, and I mean this with no hyperbole, from the depths of my soul, Godzilla Minus One is one of the top 10 greatest films I've ever seen in my entire life.
It's so good. It's so good. But even after the Japanese nuclear reactor accident,
the meltdown
after the bad earthquake and tsunami, which were bad enough. An earthquake and tsunami are things that are bad enough in the world.
Fucking that footage.
But the movie Shin Godzilla was made in an answer to Japan's own how slow they were to react to helping their people get through this terrible accident and tragedy. Yeah. So much government red tape that had to be cut through to even, and so Shin Godzilla is another movie that they made just to show.
Godzilla's an incredible allegory.
It works so well. Yeah, the artists and creators behind Godzilla, they know what they're doing. At least the Japanese ones.
If you take anything away from this very, very long podcast about Oppenheimer, is that you should watch Godzilla Minus One. Oppenheimer's a great film.
I've been waiting.
Godzilla Minus One is a perfect film.
I've been checking over and over to see when Minus One is getting a U.S. release on Blu-ray. Yeah. It's taking so long.
I don't even think Oppenheimer... I'm not 100% sure, and I'm not going to Google it to find out, but I'm not 1,000% sure that Oppenheimer is even played in Japan yet, which is understandable. And I wouldn't expect anyone outside of America to watch this film, because it is a kind of glorification. It's a glorification of one of the smartest men to ever exist in America, but it also is the creation of America's brutal like fist that they've held over the world, and then the world responding by creating their own brutal fists, and now it's just a big fist off. Everybody's fisting. But I wouldn't expect anybody in Japan to want to see this film, and I respect that they wouldn't. I respect that, you know, Warner Brothers was like, maybe we don't push for a Japanese release. I imagine that some, you know, Japanese cinephiles might have wanted to watch it, Christopher Nolan fans, Cillian Murphy fans. I respect that there are people in Japan that have, in some way, have gotten a chance to see this movie.
I'm sure there are ways.
You know, for whatever reasons, but I would never expect any of them to actually sit down and watch it. Like, you know, and that's okay. Like, you know,
I mean,
there's
even though
certain
it was,
parts of
even though it
history
was,
that are still too raw.
even though it was 80 years ago,
Yeah.
and the majority of people who were alive 80 years ago, or who were adults who had the memory of that happening, are probably gone. But it doesn't matter. A country keeps the scars through generations to generations. We've seen that through what happened after 9/11. You know,
What happened after the Nakba in 47? Like,
countries keep the scars that
of the horrors that they've faced.
Yeah,
And,
I mean,
and weirdly, America takes those scars and turns them into art, and sometimes it's glorified and sometimes it's damned, and it's a very interesting thing to go into that. And
artists have to express themselves in some way, and sometimes it's through film.
Art is so important, and that's why films are art. I mean, like, yeah, I wouldn't say that Godzilla X Khan is art.
I wouldn't say Madam Web is art.
Oh God, no. But you know, Oppenheimer it's an art film. It is artistry at its finest in tons of different categories, and was rewarded thusly.
Oh, so many awards.
And you know, and it is important. It's important to see these movies on a big screen too, for the audience interaction, the being able to see the vision that the director has for the sound and the screen in the proper way. We've all watched movies on our TVs that we thought, fuck, I wish I'd seen this in the theater. And I'm glad I got to see Oppenheimer in the theater, and I would go see it again as long as the theater was colder and maybe a little less packed. But you know, it's a beautiful thing what this movie is for being a film. You know, we've barely talked about Robert Downey Jr. and the fact that he is phenomenal in this fucking movie and was thusly rewarded with his first Oscar.
Right, and I think one of the reasons why we haven't talked about him too much is because even though Robert Downey Jr. did an amazing job, every time he was on screen, I was so interested in just watching him.
Yeah.
But his scenes were just kind of so distant from Oppenheimer.
A little too talky.
It wasn't even talky. Like, I like talky stuff. I find slow burn dramas really interesting with dialogue.
As long as slow burn romance.
As long as the dialogue is good.
Yeah.
And, you know, so I can watch a movie that's just slow and...
Yeah.
And
you know what
just
the worst
talking.
part about Robert Downey Jr. in this movie was for me?
What's that?
He had some terrible wigs.
I thought they looked pretty good.
Oh, there's a couple wigs that are bad.
I thought the hairline...
Especially when
well.
He's trying to get Oppenheimer to come to his college and teach at his college when Einstein, quote-unquote, snubs him.
Did he have more hair then?
Yeah.
Like, the more he was balding, I liked how it looked, because I didn't see a lot of seams between his real skin and his balding skin.
It wasn't that. It was just literally the wig itself wasn't a good wig. It wasn't brushed out right. I don't know. It's just, isn't it funny how I would notice those things?
Of course,
Nicole
Byer is so good at spotting bad wigs.
Yeah.
And obviously, if you're familiar with wigs, it's easier to spot them. Sometimes she would talk about whether it was like she just went through and watched a bunch of Batman movies, and there are times where she's like, "Oh, that was such a bad wig," and I was like, "Really? Yeah, I thought that was one of the better ones." But I can't wait. I hope she watches. There's some movies that I hope she watches in the future that I know are bad
I mean, the
wigs
best
and-
wigs to ever exist are from the Lord of the Rings. Like those are the finest wigs.
Which
But
is it's
they
funny.
put the
It's
effort
funny how
into
much
them.
money a studio will put into a movie and the production company
Mm-hmm.
or whoever just the hair and makeup just isn't getting enough. I
Yeah,
mean,
they're throwing a $30 wig on
maybe that's
fucking
why
Kate Blanchett. And
they were
thinking that it's
nominated.
gonna work.
Oppenheimer was nominated for hair and makeup, but didn't win.
Barbie
so
won, right?
I think so.
Yeah, which is again, but well deserved because the costumes and the makeup in Barbie were 1,000 times not better, but better. You know,
Yeah, I
than
mean,
Oppenheimer. Like Oppenheimer was a beautiful period piece.
but the
Barbie
clothing,
had
the period
fun.
clothing in that time, just a
I
lot
mean,
of beige.
Those neon outfits that Barbie and Ken wear in Venice Beach,
Yeah.
the cowboy ones, like all
Sure.
of those costumes are flawless.
Well, let's get to how we rate this film.
Let's do it.
Me personally, I gave it 4 stars.
Mm-hmm.
I was really disappointed by that bomb
Yeah.
explosion, and it was really long. It's a really long movie, and there are movies that I can sit 3 hours through. I mean, there are movies that go by in a flash in 2.5, and there's other movies that crawl at 2.5, and this one's a 3-hour movie where the first 2 hours are easy to get through, and the last hour is a little more of a struggle as you get through some of the hearings, and that even though they can be interesting and they do share a lot with the audience of how Oppenheimer had to live with some of his choices. Yeah, I went with 4 stars out of 5. How about yourself?
I think going into after I finished the movie the other day, I was like firmly this is going to be a 5-star for me because it is as far as the creation of a film goes, as a film of itself it's a pretty goddamn near perfect film. But in thinking about it and talking with you, I think I would give it a 4.5. I might even give it a 4.75. But I think it's a vastly important movie about history. I like the way that they I like the way that Christopher Nolan looks at Oppenheimer's life. The acting is phenomenal. The music is phenomenal. The fucking everything about the creation of this film is stunning. It's, there are moments that I dislike. There's some, practical effects that I'm always like, meh. Especially after looking at the Trinity test footage, I believe they should have just used that. But, they wanted to go for a more realistic, quote-unquote, standard. But yeah, I think that this movie is important. I understand why it won all the awards that it did. I get why it won Best Film. I get why when it came to Oppenheimer and Barbie, it kind of swept where I wished, where Barbie didn't. I totally get it. I understand why Robert Downey Jr. won the Oscar over Ryan Gosling. And so, yeah, I'm going to give it a 4.5 because I think that as a film, it is an incredible achievement. And I think that the story is very important, too. And Cillian Murphy kills it. He just is, and he carries this film, and you see it on his face, you see it in his eyes, those incredible blue eyes.
A lot of eye acting
Yeah,
in this movie from him.
Fucking sapphires in his face. It's just so pretty. So yeah, I'd give it a 4.5. It's an important film.
It's fair.
Yeah.
So Maggie,
Yes, Caveman.
I've got 2 questions for you.
Hit it.
Do you think the presence of Oscar Isaac would have made Oppenheimer better?
Yeah, absolutely. Why not put his most perfect fucking face?
Every other actor's in this
Every
movie.
other actor's
Why
in this
not?
goddamn movie. Why not Oscar
Why not
Isaac's
throw a little Oscar Isaac in there?
gorgeous face? So yes, it would have been.
So second question,
Mm-hmm.
which character would you have given?
Replace Casey Affleck. Just take
Actually,
Casey Affleck out, put Oscar Isaac in.
That would have worked so well,
Oscar
except
Isaac is so delightfully threatening when he wants to be.
how many Latino Americans do you think were
No, not
working
many.
back?
And I know that they picked a lot of actors based on how they looked for, the fact that they found the best actors they could that looked like the actual scientists. I totally understand that. But A, Casey Affleck is gross and we don't like him. And B, Oscar Isaac, although an absolutely stunning Guatemalan man, is enough ethnically ambiguous that he could have played Italian. He's done it before. He'll do it again.
There you go.
You know, there's no reason why they couldn't have had just put him in there, and I don't think anybody would have questioned
nobody
it.
would blink an eye.
No, because they would have been like, holy shit, Oscar Isaac's finally in a Christopher Nolan movie. Christopher Nolan, I know you're listening to our little podcast. Please cast Oscar Isaac in something, because he's beautiful and flawless, and I love him.
Hey, if Adam Driver could play Ferrari...
Oh my God, absolutely.
I think Oscar Isaac could have been in a World War II Manhattan Project.
Like, just put Oscar Isaac in a World War II dress uniform. And that, Movie Minglers, was Oppenheimer. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed making it, and as much as, hopefully, Christopher Nolan enjoyed making the actual Oppenheimer. Please review our little show on your podcast platform of choice. We love 5 stars, and we love honest reviews. You can follow us on Instagram at movieminglepod, on Letterboxd at movieminglepod, where you get to see where myself places all of these movies that we've been watching. You can also write us at movieminglepod@gmail.com if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions. We're happy to get them. Don't forget that we've got our special bonus episode on Tron Legacy coming up June 15th, which we are thrilled for, and I cannot wait to record that one. And yeah, we've got a lot of fun things coming down the pike. This is the beginning of NOLAN Fest as well, so we're really excited to talk a lot more Christopher Nolan in the weeks to come. It's a beautiful day. Now go mingle. Bye.
Are you an effective team?
We are an effective team.
Let them fight.
How did you just do that?
I'm a really good lawyer.
Here on Caladan, we've ruled by air power and sea power. On Arrakis, we need to cultivate desert power.
Welcome, Mr. Beach. What's that bone? I'm a little confused.
Well, we wouldn't want that, would we?
I don't want to brag, but I will. I was in the Avengers. The Avengers?
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. What is that?
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
Toga, toga, toga.